Hello wonderful people. I've been doing some reading about corona wind, or effectively ionic thrusters, where the idea is that you apply very high voltage to a gas which becomes ionised, and the movement of the charged particles between electrodes produces a thrust. In the case of thrusters operating within an atmosphere like Earth's atmosphere, the charged particles also collide with ambient gas, nitrogen in the atmosphere, which creates an additional flow of particles. About 5 years ago, I was given this vintage Spellman high voltage power supply, which was destined for electronic waste, and it's sat in my shed ever since. But after watching some videos and doing some reading, I'm going to set myself a challenge to produce a device that can generate an observable amount of thrust or wind within the next hour. 5 minutes down, and I think I found one of the vital components, a dog brush. Corona is generated most efficiently from sharp points, and this comb has many of those. So maybe this can be part of my ionic thruster. So here's a little U-shaped 3D printed construction I had left over from a drone project. So I might just try using some double-sided tape to fix the electrode to that. I have seen that ionic thrusters are often built in a circular annulus sort of configuration, whereas what I'm doing is more of a linear coronal flow. So that means that all I need for the other electrode is basically a straight piece of conductive material. So I'll strip the insulation off some copper wire, and then I'm just thinking about using another offcut to ground that to the chassis of the power supply. I've got a couple of other random 3D printed pieces in a box here left over from another project, and maybe they all work to support my electrode. "29 minutes down, and I'm just about ready for the first test. There are still a few unknowns. For one thing, I believe these power supplies can be configured so that the EHT high voltage output is either positive or negative with respect to ground. Another thing I'm not sure about is the wire that I'm using for the high voltage end. Does have thick insulation, but it's not purpose-made high breakdown voltage insulation. So I'm also hoping that we do get corona discharge from the thrust comb rather than arcs developing through the wire insulation." Okay, first test. Clearly need a larger air gap. I've now moved the two electrodes a little further apart. Third test. Okay, we no longer have arcing. What I might do is kill the lights and see if we can see any coronal discharge. I can see a few little flare-ups of corona. I mean, separate to the arcing. There's a little bit of coronal discharge there. I can certainly smell the ozone, so something is happening. For the final test, I might grab a candle and see if we can see the effect of the corona wind. I've now used 50 of my available 60 minutes. You can see the candle is set up there and it's currently very still. So I'm going to now turn on our warp drive, and we'll see if the movement of air created by the ionic flow by the high voltage is able to disturb the candle. Well, it's certainly not on the verge of making a birthday wish and blowing it out. but clearly the candle is being affected by a flow. The final thing I want to do, given that the high voltage power supply does have a fan, is disconnect the high voltage power lead, and we'll see if the candle is still affected just by the airflow caused by the fan. So maybe now you can hear that the power supply fan is running, but the candle is very still. So the turbulence that we could see, I believe, was indeed caused by corona wind rather than by disturbance from the power supply fan. Just to prove it wasn't a fluke, I'm going to hook the EHT power lead back onto the power supply, and we'll just confirm that we again see the candle being disturbed. Perfect. It's just rolled over 1 hour since I started. Clearly this thruster isn't going to be propelling any spacecraft to asteroid 16 Psyche anytime soon. Nonetheless, I'm pleased that it has clearly demonstrated that using nothing but the high voltage and a gas, the atmosphere, it's able to produce a disturbance and by consequence a very small reaction thrust. At least it was a good chance to drag the EHT power supply out of the shed. I'll have to take it back out there now.